The Granger Chronicles, a Western saga. Prologue. The Boy in the Cabin, 1870s. The world had not been kind to the Grangers. Their cabin stood alone in the wilderness, miles away from the nearest town. It was small, made of rough pine logs and held together more by love than by craftsmanship. Inside lived 3 people: Felix Granger, Mary Granger, and their son Silas Granger. Mary was warmth. "Eat slower, Silas," she'd laugh, brushing his hair aside, the words not running away. Felix was harder. "If you're going to survive out here, boy, you learn to keep your eyes open." Silas learned both lessons. His father taught him to shoot and hunt. His mother taught him kindness. He would only remember one of those things. One cold morning, Felix handed him a rifle. "Go get us something for supper." Mary smiled. "Don't stay gone too long." "I won't." Those were the last words he'd ever hear from her. Hours later, he heard screaming. He dropped the rabbit he had hunted and ran. Smoke drifted from the cabin. The front door was broken. "Ma?" Inside, several men were ransacking the place. One of them turned. "You shouldn't be here, boy." A bottle smashed. Glass tore across Silas's eye. He screamed. Then he heard his father. "Silas!" Felix fought through the men and grabbed him. "Run!" "But Ma!" A gunshot echoed. Silence. Felix pulled him into a forest. Silas looked back one last time. The cabin disappeared behind the trees, and so did his childhood. Chapter 1. Near Valentine, 1890. 20 years later, the boy was gone. Silas had grown older. Tall and lean, with dark eyes, a scar rested over his eye, a permanent reminder of the night his world ended. He wore a black hat with a red band around it, a striped grey vest, a white shirt with rolled sleeves, and a gold pocket watch chain hung from his vest. The watch belonged to Felix. He never took it off. Silas and Felix lived in a camp near Valentine. They hunted, trapped, did whatever they could to survive. One night, Felix noticed his son staring into the fire. "You thinking about her again?" Silas nodded. "Every day." Felix looked into the flames. "Me too." Silence. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" Felix took a long breath. "No." The answer hurt, but I think she'd still love us. Silas didn't sleep that night. A week later, their camp was attacked by bandits. They barely escaped. As they rode away, Felix looked at his son. "We can't keep living like this." Silas agreed. Neither knew their decision would change everything. Chapter 2. Gango Guns, 1892 to 1895. They began riding with outlaws. At first it was for money, then survival, then because they didn't know anything else. Eventually, Silas, with a new necktie and mustache, formed his own gang. 8 men. They called themselves the Gango Guns. Their camp sat hidden in the pines. A lookout tower stood nearby. Money was buried beneath an old oak. Silas made the rules. Nobody steals from the poor, nobody harms children, and nobody gets left behind. The men agreed. By 1895, Silas Granger's name was spreading across the frontier. The scar-eyed devil, the ghost of the frontier, the man who outran the law, the Blackwater National Bank robbery. The gang robbed the richest bank in the territory. Nearly $50,000. Everything went wrong. Gunfire, rain, chaos. Only Silas and his friend Phil Summers, who was also in the gang, survived. As they sat beneath the cliff during the storm, Phil smiled. "We did it." Silas stared into the darkness. "I don't feel any different." The Valentine payroll heist. Silas stopped an entire train. He never fired a shot. A guard later said there was something in his eye, like he'd already buried us. Chapter 3. Sisika and the Fall, 1896 to 1898. A robbery near Saint Denis had finally caught up to him. Silas was arrested. He was sent to Sisika Penitentiary, the most secure prison in the state. No one escaped. He was placed in cell 13. At night, prisoners heard him speaking. One finally asked, "Who are you talking to?" "My mother." "You think she can hear you?" Silence. "I hope so." Every day he carved 2 letters into the wall. MG, Mary Granger. Nearly 2 years later, a small boat arrived. An explosion rang out. Silas escaped with his father through the hole. 3 prisoners followed. Only Silas came out alive, along with his father. No one ever discovered what happened to the others. The prison warden later said, if hell had an outlaw, it'd be Silas Granger. After escaping, Silas returned to Gang of Guns. But he had changed. He became colder, quieter, more dangerous. The duel of Elias Crow, the deadliest bounty hunter in the territory, finally found him. Draw. "I don't want to." "You don't get a choice." Crow reached for his revolver. 1 shot. Crow fell dead. Silas holstered his weapon. "I told you." Marshal Theodore Kane. For 20 years Kane hunted him. One evening the marshal cornered him beside a river. "You could have been a good man." Silas smiled. "Maybe." "What happened?" Silas looked at the water. "A cabin. Tumbleweed. The final robbery with Felix. Everything went wrong. Pinkertons appeared. The gang scattered. Felix climbed a windmill to escape. Pa, don't! Felix looked down. Live better than me, boy. A revolver cracked. Felix fell. Silas never forgot the sound. He disappeared after that day. Chapter 4. Zachary, 1943. Decades passed. Silas hid in the wilderness. He found a woman. Then he had a son. Zachary Felix Granger. He named him after his father. For the first time in years, Silas tried to live honestly. He built another cabin, raised cattle, taught Zachary how to how to hunt, how to read, how to survive. But he never told him everything. Some night Zachary would find his father sitting by the fire holding a silver necklace. "Whose is that?" Silas smiled sadly. "My mother's." "Do you miss her?" Silas looked into the flames. "Every day." Chapter 5. The Last Stand, 1956. The bounty hunters finally found him. Silas knew before they reached the house. He opened the hatch beneath the floor. "Go." Zachary looked confused. "What's happening?" "You run." "Where?" Silas's voice softened. "Anywhere I ain't." "All right. I love you, Pa." Zachary whispered out. "Me too, son." "Me too." Zachary then disappeared into the tunnel. Silas closed the hatch. He held Mary's necklace. "I tried, Ma." Then he drew his revolver. The bounty hunters burst inside. "You Silas Granger?" Silas stood straight, older, grey, tired, but unafraid. "You're late." Gunfire erupted. When it ended, Silas Granger was dead. Epilogue 1. Henry's Beginnings. Zachary had a son, Henry Silas Granger, named after the grandfather he'd never met. Henry grew up hearing stories of the outlaw, the legend, the ghost. Epilogue 2. The Last Granger. Henry became wealthy, businesses, mansions, yachts, penthouses, but he inherited more than money. He inherited ambition and danger. He became one of the greatest criminals of his generation. He robbed a casino, a bank, an island, an art centre, and never got caught. Eventually, Henry retired. Old and wealthy, he sat alone in his estate one evening. On his desk sat a faded photograph, Silas Granger, the man who started it all. Henry picked it up. "I wonder what you were really like." Outside the wind blew, just as it had outside a little cabin in the 1870s, where a boy named Silas Granger first learned that the world could take everything from you in a single day. Epilogue 3. The Grave on the Hill. The sun was beginning to set when Henry Granger reached the grave. The old wooden cross had weathered with time. The name carved into it had nearly faded away. Silas Granger, 1849 to... That's not right. It shouldn't be 1849, I put that wrong. The wind rolled... Hold on. Alright, he was born in 1872. The wind rolled through the grass and down from the mountain. Henry stood there in silence. He'd spent his entire life hearing stories about the man buried beneath his feet. The outlaw. The killer. The ghost, the legend. But standing there now, none of those names seemed right. To Henry he was simply grandfather. Henry removed his gloves and knelt. He placed a small silver necklace at the foot of the grave. Mary's necklace. The one Silas had carried until the day he died. Zachary had given it to Henry years earlier. You keep this, his father had said. It belongs to the family. Henry looked at the cross. You know, he said quietly, I became just like you. Silence. I robbed banks. A small smile. I robbed a casino too. The wind blew harder. And an art centre. He laughed softly. You would have liked that one. The smile slowly faded. I spent my whole life trying to figure you out. He looked toward the mountain. I thought I'd find answers. A long pause. But I think I understand now. He looked back at the grave. You weren't chasing money. You weren't chasing fame. You were running, Henry swallowed. Running from one bad day. The sun dipped lower. For a moment the world became completely still. Henry placed his hand on the weathered cross. I hope you found peace, Silas. He stood, adjusted his coat, and began walking away. After a few steps, he stopped. Without turning around, he spoke one final time. Tell Mary and Felix I said hello. Then Henry Granger disappeared over the hill, leaving only the old grave, the mountain, and the whisper of the wind. And for the first time in a very long time, Silas Granger was no longer running.